We were in Bagram Airfield, and then one night we got the call, and they said, a Blackhawk just crashed not too far from here. They were out just doing training flights outside of Bagram, and we're doing a gun run and didn't pull up in time and just went in like a dirt dart, like bad visibility. Wow. So it ended up being pilot error, but at the time we didn't know that. And so when you show up and you don't know what's going on, you just have to treat it as such. And we showed up and it's pitch black out, and it's just, everybody's confused. We're pulling these guys out of the Blackhawks. During that whole ordeal, as the guys are pulling the dudes out of the Blackhawk, there was one of the guys, his name was Gibbons, Chief Gibbons. His patches got ripped off of his shoulders. The next morning when the sun was shining, I walked over and I saw that there was still more. There was blood, and then there was a couple of his patches underneath the airframe, under like this chunk of Blackhawk. I don't even know what really made me want to pick his patches up. It was just kind of, in that moment, I was like, okay, I picked him up, and there was blood on him, and just put him in my cargo pocket. And then there was a little piece of Blackhawk that was like this big. It was laying with the patches, and I picked that up too and just threw it all in my pocket. We got back to our tents, and I pull out my pocket, and I got this guy's patches with blood on them and a piece of the airframe, and just threw it in my footlocker. And I don't know why I did that. Like, to this day, I'm still like, what about that made me want to grab those little pieces that were on the ground? Redeployed home, took them with me. Got out of the Ranger Regiment, took them with me. And I put them in my nightstand. And those patches and that piece of Blackhawk were in my nightstand for 14 years. If I'm being honest with myself, that was probably a piece of that, a memory of that mission that I was just holding on to for some reason.
Yeah.
And then 14 years later, now we had social media and the whole world's connected. And I was like, I wonder if his wife, first of all, I wonder if he even had a wife. I wonder if she would want these things. And so I talked to some friends, I talked to some females that I'm close with, and the resounding response from them was, if it was my husband, I would want to know. And I would want to hear from you. He had a daughter. At the time of the crash, she was 3 years old. So now she's 17, right? Wow. Every 17-year-old girl's on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I see, oh, there she is. There is a 0% chance I'm reaching out to a 17-year-old girl with this story, though, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I have to figure out how to get a hold of mom, and was able to connect the dots and then find her mother and sent that email. And man, her response brought me to tears. She said something along the lines of like, man, I was having a real bad day.
Yeah.
And she was going through a hard phase. And she goes, every time I go through a hard phase, he finds a way to wink at me. And that's what he did today. And then she goes, you want to hear the craziest thing is that we never heard anything about that night. What transpired, what it was like, who was there, what happened. To be able to talk to one of the men that pulled her husband out of that aircraft, she said it gave her and her family, her brother had a bunch of questions. Because, I mean, you know how it is. Like, the unknown is the worst. Sure. I would rather know bad things than not know anything at all, right? I was able to give them some of those, just those little tidbits, right? And then she goes, we would actually love to have his patches. To have something tangible from him from the night he died would mean more to me and my family than you'll ever know. And so I packaged those patches up in that little piece of the Blackhawk, and they lived in Tennessee, and mailed it to him. And she wrote me, she said, your package arrived today, but we just had to put it in its corner. It just had to sit there. And she goes, and it sat there for a long time until we were ready to open it as a family. And then she said when they did, like, it was really powerful for him, and it meant something to him.
Yeah.
And like I said in that post, the reason that I wrote that is because through the war on terror, lots of people had lots of different experiences. And now that we have the technology that's allowed us to connect, basically, you can almost find anyone these days, right?
Yeah.
And if you have a story about somebody or a memory about somebody, there's a good chance that there's somebody that's dying to hear it. So maybe go out there and seek those people and share those tales and keep those people's memories alive, because when I did it, I found that it was tremendously beneficial for the family. And so, like, they couldn't have been more grateful to be able to have answers from that night. And then when they opened those patches, they said, like, it literally aided in giving them a sense of closure.